So how do I turn this into this? It's a surprisingly easy and inexpensive DIY, so stick around and I'll show you how to do it. So you might be asking, why does this occur? The reason is that many years ago in Germany they made some legislative changes that insisted they use water-based adhesives in the interiors of cars. They couldn't use solvent-based adhesives anymore. The problem with that is that gluing to plastic, and this piece underneath here, which is the backing for the foam and the vinyl on the outside, is made of plastic. When that comes out of a mold, it's really smooth, and unless you use a solvent-based adhesive, it doesn't etch into the plastic, so it doesn't glue very well. And this is the result. So to fix this is a really simple process. It'll only take you about 30 minutes or so. What we're going to do is we're going to remove the door card. It takes about 2 minutes. Very, very simple, because Porsches are made to be easily pulled apart and put back together again. And then what we're going to do is use a special adhesive, which I'll show you which one to use. And then we're going to glue this back together. I'll show you how to clamp and everything, so you end up with exactly the same OEM look that you want, rather than looking like some backyard DIY. To remove the door trim, you only need a couple of tools, a T30 Torx driver, as well as a plastic trim removal tool. First thing we want to do, there are 4 plastic pieces that we need to remove. So the first one's at the end here, plastic removal tool, get underneath the bottom, and then just pop that out. That just pops straight out there. There are 2 hooks that just go into spots in there. Then we can remove this one here. You can either just pull it up, it's just on a little sort of hooks in here and one at the top there. You can either just pull it up, or if it's a bit stubborn like that one, you can get underneath it with your trim removal tool and just pop that up. And then when that pops up, there's a little hook here which is designed to sort of just keep it in place. You can just remove that and put that back in later on. There's this piece here. Best way I find is to start at the metal on the door, stick your trim removal tool under there and just get it to pop out one of the clips, and then you can get your fingers under there and then just pop that out. There are a number of clips that it just presses straight into. In addition to that, there are 2 rubber grommets that go into these holes. Sometimes those rubber grommets will stay in there, so grab those and put those back on there, ready for installation. And the last one is this one here. Open the door handle, just get your trim removal tool in the top there. It's very easy to come out, just pop straight out, get your finger under there. And the way this works, there's a little hook at the back there which hooks under there, and then just a couple of clips at the top. So when we're installing, we're going to put that back on and then just put that into place. And then there are 4 screws that need to be removed. There are 2 here, 1 in the hole in there, and 1 at the end here. So just remove those with your T30 Torx. And once you've got all that removed, what's holding the door on now are about a dozen hooks that sit on this piece here, which hook into the other side of the door and hold it in place. So all we need to do is lift it up about that far and it will completely come off. However, the Bowden cable, which is the normal metallic cable that holds onto the door handle, needs to be disconnected, as well as the electrical connection in here. Really nice thing about the design is, of the hooks that are on the back there, there's one there and one there that have sort of an extra bit on them that allows them to sit there, and so the door will just sit there in place and not actually fall off, so you don't have to hold the thing up. Also, when you are lifting this up, grab hold of it by the door handle and underneath here. Do not pull on this piece here, and the reason for that is that this bit has a perforation in it which is designed for airbag deployment, and on most cars these will actually already be torn off and this will be sort of lifting up, but you want to be careful not to damage that if yours already hasn't been broken. So just grab hold of the bottom and the door handle and just gently lift it up, and then when that comes free, then I'm going to put it on the 2 hooks, and I'll show you what these look like in a moment, and it'll just sit there like that. So looking at the inside of the door, you can see these hooks here that hook over these lugs on the interior part of the door. The nice thing is these ones at the bottom have this bit of extra here which allows them to sit over. There's one at the other end as well which will hook over and allows the whole thing to just sit there nicely like that, so we can now disconnect everything inside. There's only a couple of things and then you can remove the door card very easily. Next, I need to remove this blue electrical connector. All of these stay in place. This is the door control module. I'm going to push in that knob there and then just rotate that around, and that'll just automatically lever the thing out, and then you can just pull the whole thing out. Now we need to release the Bowden cable, which is the thing that opens your door from the inside. It's this white piece here that needs to be disconnected, and there's two sides to it here, one which is held onto a clip at the bottom, one on the top, and all we need to do is move this bottom one downwards, this one here upwards. It releases the little barb there, and that allows it to come free. So I pull that one down, push that one up, and then that thing will just slide rearwards like that, and then they can just rotate up and out. And then we need to get rid of the knob out of the end of the handle. The way we do that is because I can pull on the Bowden cable kind of like we are opening the door, so I can sort of give myself a bit of extra there and then just lift that up and it'll just pop straight out. As you can see, this is a particularly bad panel. I can get my hand in all the way down to about here somewhere. Before you do any gluing or any preparation at all, the first thing I'm going to do is just mask off all of the vinyl and sort of down to about here somewhere, so there's no chance of any glue getting on the stuff that's going to be seen from the outside. If you want to etch the surface a little bit more, paint thinner works really, really well. So I just use a toothbrush on the bristles and just put a little bit on the end and just gently rub it into it. And this is where I was practicing it. And in a couple of seconds, it just starts to roughen up the surface really, really well. And it'll just flash away, and a couple of seconds later you've got a really nice rough surface for something to grip onto. Now the glue itself should etch it, but if you're not using that, or for example along the edges here, which is kind of the most critical part of this so it doesn't even start to delaminate, you may want to etch along here to make sure that it has really, really good grip so it never comes off. This is the glue that I'm going to use, made by 3M. It's called 4475. It's an industrial plastic adhesive which is designed exactly for this application. You can buy it in 148ml or 5-ounce tube, which is what I've got here, which is going to be plenty to do the job, or a 20-litre drum, which is what they're going to use in a factory. But clearly all you need is one of these things. You're not probably going to get it from a hardware store. I had to go through a 3M distributor and have this ordered in for me. It only took about a day or so. It cost me about $35 Australian, which is about 20 bucks US, maybe a little bit more. And the stuff works an absolute treat. What we're going to do is put a whole load on the inside there so everything's well covered, clamp everything together, and then it says on the package to leave it for 24 hours for maximum strength. So I'm just going to leave it sitting here overnight, keeping it clamped, and then pull the clamps off the next day to make sure everything is in exactly the right position. So this is what it looks like after I put all the glue in place and clamped everything together. As you can see, I've used a whole bunch of clamps. What you also need to do is use something along this side here that is going to be used as a straight edge. I've used a metal ruler that's 1 meter long. I tried a piece of timber that was really solid. The problem is that the panel isn't perfectly straight. It has a bow in that direction there, as well as one like that. So you need to have a little bit of flexibility. There's about 5 millimeters of difference in a straight edge to where the panel actually goes. So the metal ruler worked really well. Maybe use a thin piece of timber that's got a bit of flex in it. But what you want is something that's going to hold the shape. So when you clamp all of this, that top edge that you're going to see near the window is going to be nice and even and not pressed in by the clamps. When you're pulling in with the clamps, what's really important here is the plastic backing and the foam. You want to pull these just in enough so the bottom of the foam there is perfectly flush with the plastic backing. I would suggest not using something like this because you can't adjust that, might over pull it but you want to pull these in just so they're perfectly aligned all the way along here, and that'll give you a nice edge along the top. And you'll need lots of clamps because it'll be quite uneven, and because the foam and the vinyl is pretty loose, it's not just going to pull in evenly all the way along, so you need to have lots of clamps that run all the way along. So this is what the panel looks like after 24 hours. I've left the clamps on there to hold everything in place and then remove them the next day. The finish I'm really happy with. When you first put all the clamps on and squeeze this down, you're going to have a bunch of excess glue coming here. I would just let that alone, and then when it was hardened the next day, I just used a sharp knife and just cut all of that off. Now it's ready to go, back on the car. And once we're done to install the panel, we're just going to hook the two hooks, bottom, left and right. So I'll just sit there quite happily like that. I can come up to the front and I can install the electrical connector. For the Bowden cable, simplest thing to do is just sort of lean in the panel just a little bit. We're going to put the knob into the hole, but it still doesn't feel like there's enough room. Then we can just get our finger and just pull on the cable so it gives itself a little bit more room, then just release it. And then I'm going to push that white lug into the hole, rotate that around, and then what I want to do is just push the whole cable forward. Easiest way to do that is just to grab hold of the cable like that and push it forward. Make sure the lugs top and bottom are engaged correctly. And now we're going to push the panel on and engage all of the hooks. The best way to do that is just lift up, grab hold of the normal door handle. Then I'm going to put my knee against it, and I'm going to push it down ever so gently, because if it doesn't go down all by itself really easily, then those hooks, instead of sort of going down like that, it's sort of hitting there like that, and you'll actually bend the rubber grommets that surround that. So make sure you sort of take it nice and easy. Then we're just going to gently push it down. Next thing we're going to do once we get the panel on is to put all the screws in. The one that you want to align first correctly is this one here. So look in the hole. Oftentimes I find you need to sort of just push that rearwards a little bit so that's aligned correctly, and then you can put those screws in. When you're putting these in, make sure you do these by hand. Don't use an electric screwdriver because they're really easy to cross thread. And also when you're putting them in, firstly just loosely, this one first just to make sure everything's aligned correctly, but then they're a really wide head and they don't need much force, so don't over tighten them, otherwise you'll break the plastic surrounding them on this panel. To fit this piece here, that hook will just go into the rear of those two holes. It'll feed down there, and on the underside there is a little tab that slots down into that bit that's on the door. So make sure you push it in that way, and then just push it down, and then give it a bit of a tug rearwards to check that that's engaged correctly. For the one at the back here, it's pretty simple. You just push that straight in. For the door handle, that little hook at the back will go on first, and then once that's engaged, then we're just going to push it in. And the one at the front, make sure those two grommets are correctly installed, and then we're just going to push that into place. Don't whack these, which a lot of people tend to want to do. Just nice and gently push it into place, and that'll last forever. Happy days, like brand new. And here's what it looks like after installation. To be honest, that looks really good. And the nice thing is, because we've used a proper adhesive on that, that should stay like that now forever.